Hello, and welcome to my 10.2 Restoration Druid UI and Weakauras guide. Kutali, once again, is making an appearance for this introduction, so say hello to her and thank her again for being amazing. I'll be showing you some important Weakauras to improve your own performance and Mythic Plus, along with how I set up my own UI for keys. This video is part 1 of the UI and Weakauras guide. The second part will be focused on UI theory so that you can take these elements and make a unique UI that looks perfect for your own gameplay and preferences. So the first thing that I want to point out on my UI is this Weakaura right here. And you might notice that it is in a very annoying placement. And the reason for that is because I want it to be slightly annoying. Okay, so you have a buff called Mark of the Wild. And it is an incredibly powerful buff. So you infuse a friendly target with the power of the wild, increasing their versatility by 3% for 60 minutes. Okay, so what this Weakaura does is that in your group around you, if you can apply your Mark of the Wild because either you or a target around you does not currently have it active, this will display. I put this in a very prominent place on my UI because I want it to stand out and to be something that bothers me when a party member does not have it. So what this will do is it will have, you can see here, it has like 0 out of 1, and that's because I'm the only member of the party. So I'm going to go ahead and apply, and it will disappear. The second number, will change depending on how many party members you have or raid members. It is absolutely amazing, an amazing Weakaura to have so that you can make sure that you maximize your uptime on Mark of the Wild. And that Weakaura is just simply called Mark of the Wild Missing, and a link will be put in the description to this Weakaura so that you can add this to your UI yourself. If you play other classes, say a priest, or really any class that has a raid buff or a party buff, you should find your Weakaura that does this same thing so that you can maximize your uptime on the buff. And just so you know, raid leaders will absolutely love it if they never have to ask you, hey, can we get the fort buff? Hey, can we get Mark? Or another important thing is, even in keys, when someone dies, having 3% versatility missing from them is a pretty dramatic decrease in the stats that they have. And every single class will benefit massively by just having 3% verse. So when someone dies, say that they get one shot from accidentally pulling threat from the tank at the very beginning of a pull, that happens pretty often. You'll want to make sure that this pops up in a prominent location so that you can promptly reapply Mark of the Wild instead of them having to ask you or go halfway through a dungeon before you realize that one person is missing the buff. So that's my first thing that you should add to your own UI if you're a Resto Druid or a Druid in general. And 2, if you play a different class, you should find your own class-specific Weakaura or make your own for this buff. The second Weakaura I want to introduce you to is this Flourish Weakaura. What it does is displays only when you activate Flourish, and it will have the time remaining along with this message that says, hey, your HOTS are ticking 25% faster. This is just simply a way to track Flourish when you activate it, and also if you do end up convoking defensively, so for healing, it will also display the Flourish procs there along with the time remaining. This is, to me, very helpful so that I can see exactly how long my HOTS are extended, and so I can just keep track to make sure that I indeed did activate it. It is called Flourish 25% Display. This is a custom Weakora that I made some changes to, so I will be uploading this one on my own profile. However, I will do my best to include a link to the original Weakora that was from last season, because it also displayed the second part of the Flourish with our tier set. However, that's no longer necessary, and also the spell was nerfed, so the display, I changed the display to 25% and also took off the other elements that no longer are needed. So if you are interested in adding this, I highly recommend it. It's just a very nice and easy way to see exactly when your Flourish is activated. Alright, so the next Weakora that I'm going to be talking about briefly here is the Clearcasting Weakora. This is a very, very simple Weakora that I made to just display the stacks that I have of Clearcasting, so 1 and the default. However, with a talent called Tranquil Mind, that can stack up to 2 times. So I want to make sure that I can easily track when I have the 2 stacks. So I made this Clearcasting Weakora. It displays the time remaining in a pretty simple and easy way to understand, and then the number there is just the amount of stacks. So I will put this also in the description of the video if you would like to add this to your UI. However, there also is the built-in Clearcasting tracking in the Blizzard UI, but I do find when it can stack multiple times that I make better use of those stacks when I actually have the number displayed. The next Weakora I would like to mention is the Smart Adaptive Swarm Weakora. I go really far into this Weakora in part 2 of my Resto Druid Beginner's Guide, so I'm just going to mention it here. However, I once again will put a link in the description. The thing to understand about the Smart Adaptive Swarm Weakora is that it will just help you with your targeting and placement of your adaptive swarms on your friendly party members, so that you can maintain as many swarms out at one time as you possibly can, or at least as close to optimal as you can be without just being a crazy genius and having a 1000 IQ. So, if you have that, you don't need the Smart Adaptive Swarm. However, I do not have that, so I use this Weakora. The next Weakora that I highly recommend is called Ultimate Mouse Cursor. And what this does is it gives you a reticule, well, multiple reticules around your cursor that allows you to track things like your GCD, how long the cast is, among other things. You can even add a mouse tail to help you track your mouse movement on the screen. I do not use the mouse tail, and I believe I use everything default in this Weakora. However, I can't 100% guarantee that because I've used it for a long time. So if you are having trouble sometimes tracking your mouse, or are wanting to have a very simplistic way to see more information about your GCD and or your cast time on whatever ability, I would highly recommend that you get the Ultimate Mouse Cursor. Okay, so on to another super important add-on, or Weakora rather, for a Resto Druid, and it is called Resto Druid Cursor. Now, the disclaimer here that I'm going to put in this video is that I use a highly customized Resto Druid Cursor version to only display exactly what I want it to display. if you get this weak aura, it will have many, many more things on it, and also the positioning will be different. I positioned it to work very well with how I have my ultimate mouse cursor set up, but that took quite a bit of custom configuration for me specifically. And two, when I had all of my Resto Druid cooldowns displayed with the Resto Druid cursor, I found it to be super overwhelming, and I was pressing buttons to just press buttons, not pressing buttons at the right time or with my own decision making. It was more about just clearing my screen, getting less things to be displayed by the cursor, to where I found it very distracting during my actual gameplay. So that's my big warning here, is you will want to make sure that you set up the Resto Druid cursor to exactly how you want it to be displayed. The only thing that I track with the Resto Druid cursor weak aura is actually my life blooms. When I only have that displayed, it is very minimalistic to me, and I can maintain significantly higher uptime on my life blooms, which is something that I was struggling without using this weak aura. The downside of the weak aura in my own mind is it can have way too much information displayed, but that is a completely personal preference. I will link the Resto Druid cursor weak aura in its whole. However, this is something that you should experiment with and adjust to your own liking. I will also consider uploading just the version that I use. However, I did not make this weak aura completely from scratch, and I would recommend that you do try it, because there are plenty of druids that absolutely love the Resto Druid cursor in its default form. So that's something that you should play around with and get used to, and it will significantly improve your gameplay when you have it adjusted to exactly how you want it to be. Another super important Resto Druid specific weak aura is my Resto Buffs, and what this does is increases the amount of HOTS that can be displayed to your party frames, your friendly party frames. So by default in the Blizzard UI, you can only have, say, 2 or 3 different effects. I can't quite remember how many beneficial effects displayed. So maybe you have Adaptive Swarm, Rejuve, and a Regrowth HOT on the target. Well, that is not enough information most of the time to, say, be successful in higher Mythic Plus keys. You want to know exactly what everybody has. And the 3 debuff, or buff slots rather, the 3 buff slots are not enough to accurately make good decisions on who to target next and with what. So the way to solve that for the Blizzard UI frames is a weak aura called My Resto Buffs, and it will increase that amount to 6, which very often times is enough without completely cluttering your party frames. This might require some slight tweaking based on the size of your UI. However, that is not terribly hard to do and is an absolute massive quality of life change that makes it to where the Blizzard UI frames for Resto Druids are actually playable and, not completely the worst thing that you've ever seen. So I highly, highly recommend that you get my Resto Buffs for Resto Druid healing with the Blizzard default UI. Okay, so first off, very sorry for the visual aids here, because wow, it is not pretty in its default, display everything at once version. But the next weak aura I want to talk about that will 100% improve your gameplay and your awareness in a Mythic Plus dungeon is DF Dungeons. If you are doing Mythic Plus without using this weak aura, in my opinion, you are hampering yourself for no reason other than you like to maybe suffer, which is okay if that's, how you are and what you want to be. But if you want to time keys and have much more information displayed in a usable, readable format, I would highly recommend that you get DF Dungeons. So it should have all 3 seasons in the base package. However, I'm not for sure on that, so you'll want to make sure that you're going to get the correct season each when you go to download this. So this is how I have mine set up in its general display. Any bosses, say like Lord Waycrest in Waycrest Manor, his HP bar will be here to kind of give you a visual on how quickly that's going to, when Lady Waycrest heals him. Here is a very clear display, and remember, most of these only pop up one at a time. There's never a time that it looks like this, with a simple message to say, hey, this is what's about to happen. Here has this list, essentially, is often used for like trash mobs that have some type of mechanic that you need to deal with. So one of the best examples that I can think of off the top of my head is in Everbloom, when you have to bait the arcane orb. It will count down to that mechanic and display the message, hey, bait orb furthest. So you can be an absolute Giga Chad at making sure that you are baiting that mechanic away from the group, and it will help you be in the right place at the right time. I cannot recommend it enough. But it will take you a little bit of time in order to make sure that you have all of these things displayed in the correct position that makes sense for your UI. Here, in the top left, below my damage and healing meters, there's a word display, and I have that actually above my party frames. So when I'm glancing over and healing people, if I want a text display of what's upcoming or what's about to happen, that is also in a place that even if I'm not looking under my own feet, I can still see what's going on. So that is super important that you, as a healer, maximize those types of things, because you always want to make sure that you're aware of what's coming, what's about to happen. That is a super important concept for a healer. You want to make sure you prepare for damage, no matter what type of healer that you're playing. Like, people do say that, like, hey, Resto Druid, you have to be proactive. Well, here's the very simple fact for you. Any good healer, no matter what class or spec they play, is proactive in their healing. Period. So one of the best ways to make sure that you're going to be a proactive healer, no matter the spec that you're playing, is you have to have your information about what's going to happen with the mobs or the boss in a way that you can always see what's going on while you're dodging mechanics or while your attention is focused on healing your party members. So, again, DF Dungeons will level up your awareness in any given trash pull or a boss fight, and it, to me, works very nicely with either DVM or bigwigs, depending on which preference that you have. Okay, so on to another awareness enhancing add-on for healers to make sure that you, no matter where you're looking on your screen, are informed of different things that are happening in the boss fight or in a trash pull, but mainly boss fights with this one. But I cannot explain to you how much this Weakaura, for me, presents information in a way that's digestible and also gives me a better view than the traditional bar layout of DBM and little big wigs and little wigs. Okay, so this Weakora is called Raid Ability Timeline, and what it does is puts those displays into a timeline with a countdown. So here you see like 5. Well, anything below that number is going to happen in the next 5 seconds. For a healer that spends a lot of time saying, okay, I have to prepare for damage that's incoming, the Raid Ability Timeline puts those boss mechanics in such an easy and digestible format that I cannot imagine how I was playing prior to using this. So I highly recommend that you get Raid Ability Timeline, and it will work for dungeons as well, but mainly just on boss fights. So again, it is super, super important that you level up your awareness in any way that you can, and using Raid Ability Timeline is a very simple way for you to put information in a more digestible format so that you can prepare for incoming damage before it happens. The next Weakora I want to talk about is M+ Healer Focus Assist for Dragonflight Season 3. And what this will do is around your party frames, it will give a glow or like a highlight to party members that are currently affected or standing in by some type of debuff that you should properly respond to. So for example, if a party member gets a bleed placed on them, it might glow red. So you know that, hey, this party member is about to take a lot of damage, and you should focus your priority to maybe healing them versus a different party member that does not have that effect on them. So basically what it's going to do is going to help you limit the times that somebody has a dangerous debuff on them that you don't react to properly, and then make sure that you can, say, in the form of Resto Druid, decide like, hey, maybe I should move one of my life blooms to this target to help counteract with the negative effect that's currently on them. This will 100%, decrease the amount of times that someone dies from your attention being split in too many different directions, and will 100% help you prioritize targets that are, in the most danger when there is a lot of damage going out. So I cannot, recommend this Weakora enough. The author of this is like, it's amazing. I wish that, I had been using this for forever, because it would really have cut down a lot of times that I was healing a target that had maybe low HP, but I actually wasn't healing the person who was in danger of dying the most at the current time. So it just really shifts your attention and focus to people who really need to be focused for your heals. It's amazing. Please thank the author for this awesome Weakora. Another Weakora you should consider adding to your arsenal is just simply the M+ Timer Weakora. And what it does is just gives you a very nice, accurate display on the bosses that you have defeated, the timings in the dungeon to +2, +3, and gives you a very nice way to display the trash percentage, and also as you are in combat with the trash will dynamically update the percentage that pack that you're in combat with adds to the total percentage. So To me, I like this much more than the default. It has a lot more information, but it's partially just a preference thing, though I would highly recommend that you grab this Weakaura to just help, track those types of things. So I swapped over to one of my alts here to show you guys this next Weakaura that I absolutely love, because I very oftentimes am a smooth brain. And what it is, it displays just on wherever you want it on your screen, but missing enchants on your gear pieces, so that as you're gearing your new Resto Druid, when you get a nice new piece of gear, that you remember, hey, this thing does need an enchant, and so you're not running around trying to do harder and harder content and be trolling the group by not having everything enchanted. And so, that can be a prohibitive factor on your performance as the keys get higher and higher. And also, your raid leader will absolutely love you because they don't have to comment, hey, Dottie, you forgot your enchants again this week. So don't be like me. Just get this Weakaura, and it will tell you what you're missing. It is amazing, and I could not live without it because, again, I'm kind of a smooth brain a lot of the time. Along the same lines as the Enchants Weakaura is another Weakaura that has absolutely improved my quality of life on maintaining the different files and food buff and any other enchants that or consumables, that's probably a better way of saying it, any other consumables that your class might want to use, is called Funki, Clickable, Raid Buffs, and Temporary Enchants. This is absolutely amazing, as you can see with the bouncing messages here. It also alerts you to when a repair bot is down, summoning stone, mage table, feast, everything that you need to know with that kind of stuff is going to be placed in a prominent position in your UI, so that, again, your raid leader, or to help you right before your key, make sure that you have all the buffs necessary for you to be successful in a dungeon or raid run. So I think this concludes basically the biggest and most important Weakauras that you need to help upgrade your own UI display. And if we imagine some friendly party frames here, we can start to imagine, what the overall picture, the thing that we're building in our UI, that I'm going to talk about more in the second video, which is called, let's go to build a box. So you can see here that if we imagine our party frames here, we have really important things that we need displayed in our dungeon run in a small box within the bigger box of our WoW UI window. Okay, so I'm going to go more into that in the next video, talking about the theory of, say, hey, maybe you copied my UI exactly and it didn't really work out for you, or you don't like certain aspects of it. That's completely okay. And so what I want to do in the next video is teach you to say, okay, well, say you downloaded all of the Weakauras that I'm using here, and you have your display, your UI generally set up the same, but it's messy to you, or you don't like the way, say, my name, my party frame, and my target frame are positioned. Well, in the next video, like I said, I'm going to cover, hey, if you're going to add new things, this is the theory that I believe that healers should use in order to build a UI that promotes, like, seeing the information that you need to see exactly where you need to see it, while also not being too overwhelming and allowing you to keep track of your own positioning when things like there's fire on the ground, that you're not accidentally standing in fire when you're looking at your party frames, etc., etc. So this will conclude part 1 that I cover my Weakauras. I didn't even have time to get into some particular add-ons that I use, though to me, the most important part here is definitely your Weakaura setup for Mythic Plus. I could make a separate video about some add-ons that I like to use, but really you can get 90% of the way there just with, the Weakauras that I'm currently displaying, aside from DF Dungeons, because that would make this look way too messy to be even remotely understandable. So that's why that's not displayed here. But that would be the other part of the box. That would be here with the text in the top left. On top of the box would be the important mechanics, boss mechanics, and then slightly next to my target frame would be any important like trash mechanics coming up. So that is how I built the box within the box. But again, we will go over that in the next video. If you found some value in this video, I would absolutely love if you would give the video a like or give my channel a subscribe. That would mean the world to me. I have been working super hard to provide as in-depth and good of content that I'm able to based on my own time restrictions with work. So it means a lot to me if you guys would, leave a comment with anything that you thought was interesting or things that maybe I might have missed. And I really am looking forward to making more videos for everyone. And I really appreciate all of the support and comments and likes and messages that I've gotten to, just thank me or just be like, hey, this really helped me in some way. That means the world to me. So I, thank you if you've made it all the way through this video. And I will see you guys with part 2 very, very soon. I'm hoping I might be able to get that done and out tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. But I wanted to make sure that I could get the people that have been asking about my Weakauras and stuff, 90% of the way there to getting exactly what they want on the screen displayed where they want it. And yeah, thank you so much. And I will talk to you guys later.